The notification glowed on my phone's screen like a wound. Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary celebration. 3 smiling faces. 2 parents. 1 sister. 0 invitations for me. When I called Laura to ask why, her laughter cut through the phone like broken glass. Because you abandoned us, Olivia. You don't get to pretend you care now. So I did what any rational person would do. I canceled everything. The $15,000 catering. The impossible-to-get restaurant reservation. The premium ingredients I've been secretly supplying for years. Let's see how their perfect party goes without the sister who never did anything for the family. The morning Chicago sun sliced through the industrial windows of Olivia, casting harsh geometric shadows across the pristine kitchen. I stood at the 6-burner range, stirring a reduction that would become the base for tonight's special, osso buco that had been braising since 4 a.m. The familiar weight of the wooden spoon in my hand, the rhythmic scraping against copper, the way the sauce caught the light like liquid amber. These were my prayers, my meditation, my escape from everything else. Chef, the Tribune food critic, just confirmed for tonight's service. Michael, my sous chef, called from the pass. At 26, he possessed the kind of raw hunger I remembered from my own early days. The way he held his knife, the precision of his brunoise, the reverence with which he tasted every sauce. It was like watching my younger self through a mirror darkened by 10 years of success and twice as many regrets. Table 12, I replied, not looking up from my reduction. Make sure the amuse-bouche is perfect. And Michael! I finally turned to meet his eager eyes. The lobster special needs more acid. A touch of white wine vinegar in the beurre blanc. Trust me. He nodded, scribbling notes with the devotion of a seminary student. Watching him, I felt that familiar ache in my chest, the one that came whenever I thought about learning to cook in another kitchen, 300 miles away, in a small Ohio town where my parents had spent 35 years building something I'd walked away from. Casabella. Even thinking the name made my hands tighten around the spoon. The original Casabella sat on Maple Street in Columbus, Ohio, a converted Victorian house with exposed brick walls and windows that caught the afternoon light just right. 80 seats, red checkered tablecloths, and the kind of authentic Italian cuisine that made food critics drive 5 hours from Cincinnati just to try my father's ragu. For 35 years, Thomas and Mary Castellano had poured their souls into that restaurant, turning it into the kind of place where 3 generations of families celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, first dates, and last meals. I'd learned to cook there, standing on milk crates to reach the prep station, small hands guided by my father's large, flour-dusted ones. Cooking is not about recipe, he'd say in his thick accent that never fully faded despite 4 decades in America. Cooking is about amore. You put love in food, people taste love. But love, I'd learned, wasn't always enough. When I announced my decision to leave for culinary school, then Chicago, then my own restaurant, my father had turned his back to me in the kitchen, the same kitchen where he taught me everything I knew about food, about passion, about tradition. You break my heart, Olivia, he'd said to the wall, his voice so quiet I almost missed it. Family restaurant needs family. Without family, it's just restaurant. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of minimal phone calls, obligatory holiday cards, and the kind of polite distance that forms when love exists but pride won't let it breathe. What my family didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I'd never really left. Not completely. Every Friday, I placed orders with specialty suppliers, arranging for premium ingredients to be delivered to Casabella at deeply discounted rates. San Marzano tomatoes, real Parmigiano Reggiano aged 24 months, white truffles from Alba, wild-caught branzino. I told the suppliers it was a sister restaurant arrangement, which wasn't entirely a lie. Through carefully orchestrated connections, I'd steered wealthy clients their way. Chicago socialites who collected authentic dining experiences like rare wines, food enthusiasts who drive hours for a truly perfect carbonara. I was the ghost in their success, the invisible hand that kept their monthly numbers healthy and their reputation growing. It was my penance, my way of honoring the family I disappointed, even if they'd never know it was me. My phone buzzed against the stainless steel counter, the vibration cutting through the kitchen's controlled chaos. Instagram notification. I almost ignored it. Social media was Michael's domain, not mine, but something made me pick it up. The photo stopped me cold. Casabella's familiar brick facade, but decorated with white lights and burgundy ribbons. Celebrating 35 years of amore, the caption read. Join us for Thomas and Mary's anniversary party this Saturday. The image showed my parents, arms around each other, my father actually wearing a suit instead of his usual chef's whites. My mother, radiant in a deep blue dress I'd never seen, her silver hair styled in a way that made her look 10 years younger. And Laura, my younger sister, positioned between them like a bridge, her arms protectively around both parents, her smile bright enough to power the restaurant's dining room. 3 people. A perfect family unit. Complete without me. I scrolled down to the comments section, my finger moving with the mechanical precision I used to fillet fish. Congratulations poured in from customers, neighbors, high school friends whose names I recognized but faces I'd forgotten. Mrs. Patterson from down the street. Father Mike from St. Anthony's. The Kowalski family, who'd been coming for Sunday dinner since before I was born. 47 comments. Not one mention of the missing daughter. My hands were steadier than they should have been as I dialed Laura's number. The phone rang 4 times, long enough for me to wonder if she declined the call before her voice came through, artificially bright and deliberately cheerful. Well, well, the prodigal chef calls. In the background, I could hear the familiar sounds of dinner service, the rhythmic chopping of knives, the sizzle of garlic hitting hot oil, the overlapping conversations of servers calling out orders. Home sounds. Sounds I trained myself not to miss. I saw the Instagram post, I said, forcing my voice to remain level. About the anniversary party. A pause. Then, and I was wondering why I wasn't invited. The laugh that came through the phone was sharp enough to cut glass. Are you serious right now? You're actually asking me why you weren't invited? Laura, when was the last time you came home for anything that mattered? Her voice rose, and I could picture her stepping away from the line, moving toward the back office where family arguments had always been conducted away from staff and customers. Christmas? Too busy. Easter? Restaurant obligations. Mom's birthday last year? Oh, that's right, you sent flowers. Expensive ones, I'm sure, because that's how you solve everything, isn't it? With money. Each word landed like a physical blow. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her voice turned cold, professional. You left, Olivia. You chose your career, your fancy Chicago restaurant, your Michelin stars and James Beard nominations over us. Over family. And now you want to waltz back in for one party, play the loving daughter for a few hours, then disappear again for another year. That's not. Mom cried for weeks after you left. Did you know that? Dad stopped talking about you entirely. It was like you died. Except worse, because dead people don't send guilt flowers on holidays. My throat felt tight, constricted. Laura, please. You want to know why you weren't invited? Because you've never done anything for Mom and Dad. Not really. Oh, sure, you send your corporate gifts and your impersonal donations, but when have you actually been here? When have you actually sacrificed anything for this family? The irony was so sharp it could have cut bone. If only she knew about the supplier arrangements, the client referrals, the hundreds of small ways I'd been supporting Casabella from the shadows. But I couldn't tell her. Pride is a poison that tastes sweet going down. I have my reasons for. I don't want to hear your reasons. Laura cut me off. Mom's calling me. We're busy preparing for our family celebration. You know, the one where family actually shows up. The line went dead. I stood in my empty kitchen, holding the phone like it might ring again, might give me a chance to explain everything I couldn't say. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual indifferent energy, traffic, construction, the distant wail of sirens. Inside, the silence was complete. My laptop sat open on the office desk upstairs, its screen casting a blue glow in the darkened room. I climbed the narrow stairs that led from the kitchen to my office, my legs feeling strangely detached from my body. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. The reservation system glowed on the screen, showing the complex web of arrangements I'd made for my parents' anniversary. Le Festin, Chicago's most exclusive catering company, booked for Saturday afternoon. A full Italian feast for 60 people, complete with a gelato station and a wine pairing curated specifically for the occasion. Cost: $15,000, charged to my American Express. The signature room reservation for Saturday evening, the private dining room that overlooked the Columbus skyline, impossible to book unless you had connections or were willing to pay triple the normal rate. I'd done both. The specialty ingredient orders, scheduled for delivery throughout the week. White truffles from Italy, aged balsamic from Medina, fresh mozzarella di bufala flown in from Campania. Another $3,000 in ingredients that would transform an ordinary anniversary dinner into something extraordinary. All of it arranged secretly, invisibly, by the daughter who never did anything for her family. My finger hovered over the mouse. One click would cancel the catering. Another would release the restaurant reservation back into the system. A few more keystrokes would stop the ingredient deliveries. Laura's words echoed in my head. "You've never done anything for Mom and Dad." I clicked. The cancellation confirmation appeared instantly, cold and bureaucratic. "Your reservation has been successfully canceled. Cancellation fees may apply." I clicked again and again. Each cancellation felt like pulling a thread, unraveling months of careful planning, years of invisible support. By the time I finished, my parents' anniversary party had been reduced to whatever Laura could scramble together in 4 days. But I wasn't done. I opened my email and began typing messages to the suppliers who'd been providing Casabella with premium ingredients at fraction of their usual cost. My fingers moved mechanically across the keyboard, each word a small act of destruction. "Due to changing business requirements, we will no longer need deliveries to Casabella in Columbus, Ohio, effective immediately. Send. Please discontinue all arrangements for the Columbus location. This decision is final. Send. Thank you for your service, but we will be terminating our agreement as of this week. Send." The sun was rising by the time I finished. My office window faced east, and the morning light painted everything in shades of amber and gold, colors that reminded me of the kitchen at Casabella, of Sunday mornings spent helping my mother prepare the week's specials, of the way my father's eyes lit up when he tasted something perfect. What had I done? At Casabella, Tuesday morning brought the first wave of confusion. Laura stood in the prep kitchen, staring at her phone screen as if the words might rearrange themselves into something more palatable. The third supplier this morning had sent the same message: immediate termination of services, no explanation, no warning. "Papa," she called, her voice tight with worry. "We need to talk." Thomas emerged from the walk-in cooler, his arms full of vegetables for the lunch prep. At 68, he still moved through the kitchen with the fluid grace of someone who'd spent his entire adult life in professional kitchens, but Laura noticed the way he favored his left knee, the slight tremor in his hands that came with age and 40 years of repetitive motion. "What is it, cara mia?" She held up her phone. "Benedetto Brothers just canceled our truffle order. That's the third supplier this morning. The San Marzano tomatoes, the aged balsamic, the prosciutto, all of it. Gone." Thomas frowned, setting down the vegetables with more force than necessary. "Canceled? Why?" "They won't say. Just changing business requirements and immediate termination." "Papa, these are suppliers we've worked with for years. Some of them since before I was born." Mary appeared in the doorway, her apron already dusted with flour from the morning's bread preparation. Even at 65, she moved through the restaurant with the kind of graceful energy that made customers feel immediately welcome, but Laura could see the worry lines around her eyes deepening. "What's wrong? You both look like someone died." "Our suppliers," Laura said, showing her mother the phone. "Half of them have canceled their contracts in the past 2 days. No explanation, no warning." Mary's face went pale. "But the anniversary party is this Saturday. We need those ingredients for—" "I know." Laura ran her hands through her hair, a gesture she'd inherited from her father. "I'm calling other suppliers, but Papa, you know what the prices are like. These companies were giving us deals I couldn't understand. Now I'm finding out what restaurants normally pay for this stuff, and it's—" She trailed off, but Thomas understood. The profit margins at Casabella had always been thin. That was the nature of family restaurants. The mysteriously affordable premium ingredients had been the difference between comfortable success and mere survival. "We manage," Thomas said firmly, but Laura could hear the uncertainty beneath his words. 35 years, we manage everything. This is no different. But it was different, and they all knew it. By Thursday, the impact was undeniable. Mr. Henderson, a food blogger whose reviews could make or break local restaurants, complained that the truffle risotto lacked the earthy depth I've come to expect from Casabella. The Martelli family, celebrating their daughter's engagement, commented that the prosciutto seemed ordinary compared to their last visit. Laura watched her parents age 5 years in 3 days. Her father's usual commanding presence in the kitchen became subdued, almost apologetic. Her mother's bright greetings to customers carried a forced quality that regulars noticed and responded to with polite concern. "Maybe we should postpone the party," Mary suggested on Thursday night as they sat around a table in the empty restaurant, picking at plates of food that would have been spectacular a week ago but now felt merely competent. "No," Thomas said firmly. 35 years deserve celebration. We make it work. But Friday brought worse news. Lou Feston, the catering company that was supposed to handle the party food, called with a cancellation that came with a crushing penalty fee. The signature room reservation, gone, released back to a waiting list that was 6 months long. Laura sat in the restaurant's tiny office, surrounded by 35 years of memories, photos of satisfied customers, reviews from local papers, awards from the Chamber of Commerce, and felt the weight of failure pressing down on her shoulders. She'd been so determined to protect her parents from Olivia's abandonment, so sure that she could fill the void her sister had left. But what if she'd been wrong? What if, in her jealousy and resentment, she'd pushed away the one person who might have actually been helping all along? Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. The Kowalskis just canceled their reservation for Saturday. They said they're not sure about the quality lately. I don't understand what's happening. Laura stared at the message until the words blurred together. Then, with shaking fingers, she opened her laptop and began searching for any connection between the canceled suppliers and her sister's Chicago restaurant. What she found made her stomach drop to her knees. The truth unraveled like a badly knitted sweater. Benedetto Brothers, premium supplier to Chicago's finest restaurants, including the award-winning Olivia. Romano Specialty Foods, proud to serve Chef Olivia Miller's acclaimed establishment. Artisan Imports International, a company photo showing their team with a woman who looked exactly like Laura's sister. Each supplier, each mysteriously affordable premium ingredient, each stroke of luck that had kept Casabella competitive in an increasingly difficult market, all of it traced back to the sister Laura had accused of abandoning the family. She sat in the office until 2 a.m., piecing together the full scope of Olivia's invisible support. The wealthy customers who'd started appearing 2 years ago, ordering expensive wines and leaving generous tips. The food bloggers who'd suddenly discovered Casabella and written glowing reviews. The steady stream of out-of-town diners who drive hours for dinner and always seem to know exactly what to order. Olivia hadn't abandoned them. She'd been protecting them, supporting them, loving them from a distance, while Laura played the role of the devoted daughter who never left home. And Laura had destroyed it all with a few cruel words and a party invitation withheld out of spite. Her phone sat on the desk, Olivia's contact information glowing on the screen. She started to dial 3 times and hung up twice. What could she possibly say? How do you apologize for being so fundamentally wrong about everything? On the 3rd try, she let it ring. "Laura!" Olivia's voice was cautious, tired. "Is everything okay? It's 2 in the morning. "I know." Laura's voice cracked. "I know what you did. All of it. The suppliers, the customers, the reviews, everything. Oh God, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "You figured it out. I ruined everything. The party, the restaurant, our family. I ruined all of it because I was jealous and stupid and—" "Laura, stop." "No, you don't understand. Mom and Dad, they're going to lose everything. The suppliers you arranged are gone, the customers are complaining, and it's all my fault. I was so angry that you left, so angry that you got out and made something of yourself while I stayed here and—" "You stayed there and kept the family together," Olivia interrupted. "You were the daughter who came home every night, who helped with inventory, who learned every recipe and customer preference. You were the daughter who was actually there when they needed you." Laura wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "But I wasn't enough. Without your help, I wasn't enough to keep it all working. That's not true. It is true. And now the anniversary party is ruined, and they'll never forgive me, and I don't know how to fix any of it. Another long pause. Then, where are you right now? At the restaurant. In the office. Stay there. I'm coming home. Olivia's car pulled up to Casabella at 6 a.m., just as the morning light was turning the brick facade from gray to its familiar warm red. Laura was waiting on the front steps, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her eyes red from crying and exhaustion. They looked at each other for a long moment, two sisters separated by years of misunderstanding, pride, and love that had been too complicated to express directly. I'm sorry, Laura said before Olivia could speak. For everything. For the things I said. For not inviting you. For not understanding what you were doing for us. Olivia sat down beside her on the steps, close enough that their shoulders touched. I'm sorry too. I should have come home more. I should have been honest about the help I was providing. I should have fought harder to stay connected instead of just sending money and ingredients like some kind of fairy godmother. Why didn't you tell us? Olivia was quiet for a moment, watching a delivery truck navigate the narrow street. Pride, I guess. And fear. If I told you I was helping, it would feel like charity. If I just showed up occasionally, I'd have to face the disappointment in Papa's eyes every time. It was easier to help from a distance and pretend it didn't matter that I was missing everything. But it did matter. It did matter. Laura leaned against her sister's shoulder. Can you fix it? The suppliers, the reservations, can any of it be fixed? I don't know, Olivia admitted. I canceled everything when I was angry and hurt. Some of those relationships took years to build. But Laura, she turned to look at her sister directly. Even if I can't fix the business stuff, I can be here for the party. I can cook for Mom and Dad's anniversary. We can make it work together. Laura's eyes filled with fresh tears. You do that? After everything I said to you? You're my sister. Of course I do that. The restaurant's back door opened, and Thomas appeared, wearing his usual pre-dawn uniform of chef's whites and a worried expression. He stopped short when he saw both daughters sitting on the front steps, their tear-stained faces lit by the early morning sun. Olivia! His voice carried decades of longing and uncertainty. What are you doing here? She stood slowly, brushing off her jeans. I came home to help with the anniversary party, Papa. If you'll have me. For a moment, Thomas just stared at her, as if she might disappear if he moved too quickly. Then his face crumpled, and he pulled his older daughter into an embrace that smelled like garlic and old spices and 35 years of cooking with love. Mia figlia, he whispered into her hair. My daughter. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Papa. I'm sorry I stayed away so long. Mary appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of voices, and her hand flew to her mouth when she saw the family reunion taking place on their front steps. She rushed forward, pulling both daughters into a huddle that felt like coming home after a very long journey. What's happening? She asked through her tears. Why is everyone here so early? Why is everyone crying? Because we're stupid, Laura said with a watery laugh. All of us. We're stupidly proud and stupidly stubborn, and we love each other so much we forgot how to show it properly. Speak for yourself, Olivia said, but she was smiling. I'm a James Beard-nominated chef. I don't do stupid. You canceled your own parents' anniversary catering out of spite, Laura pointed out. That's pretty stupid. Okay, that was stupid. Thomas pulled back to look at both his daughters, his hands on their shoulders. What is this about catering? And so, standing on the front steps of the restaurant that had been their family's heart for 35 years, Olivia and Laura told their parents everything. The secret supplier arrangements, the canceled reservations, the years of invisible support, the cruel words exchanged in anger, and the love that had persisted through all of it. Thomas listened with the patient attention he'd always given to important things, recipes that needed to be perfect, wine pairings that required consideration, family problems that demanded careful thought. So, he said when they finished, the party is tomorrow. We have no catering, no fancy restaurant, and probably no premium ingredients. That's about the size of it, Olivia confirmed. Thomas looked at his wife, his daughters, and the restaurant behind them. Then he smiled, the first genuinely happy expression Laura had seen on his face in weeks. Good, he said. Then we do it the old way. Family way. We cook together, we celebrate together, and we remember what's really important. Saturday morning transformed Casabella into a hurricane of activity. Olivia had managed to arrange for some last-minute deliveries. Not the premium ingredients she'd originally planned, but good quality components that would work for a family celebration. Laura coordinated with longtime customers, explaining the situation and asking for help instead of trying to handle everything alone. In the kitchen, 3 generations of cooking knowledge merged into something beautiful. Thomas guided the preparation of his signature ragu, a recipe that had been passed down from his own father. Mary orchestrated the production of fresh pasta, her hands still sure and quick despite arthritis that made cold mornings difficult. Laura applied techniques she'd learned in culinary school, modernizing traditional presentations without losing their essential character. And Olivia, the prodigal daughter, found herself falling back into rhythms she thought she'd forgotten. The way her father always hummed while he cooked, her mother's habit of tasting everything twice, the comfortable chaos of a family kitchen operating at full capacity. "Olivia," Thomas called from the stove, "come taste the sauce. Tell me what you think." She approached carefully, aware that this was more than just seasoning advice. Her father was asking for her professional opinion, treating her as both daughter and fellow chef, an acknowledgement that had been 7 years in the making. The sauce was perfect, of course, rich with tomatoes and wine and thyme, complex with layers of flavor that could only come from decades of refinement. But there was something missing, some element that would elevate it from excellent to extraordinary. "It needs acid," she said thoughtfully. "Just a touch. Maybe a splash of good balsamic at the very end." Thomas nodded approvingly. "This is what I think too. Laura, you have the aged balsamic." "I'll get it," Laura said, but she was smiling. Watching her father and sister work together, she realized that some things were worth the years of separation. The way they moved around each other in the kitchen, the shared language of seasoning and timing and intuition, this was what family looked like when pride stepped aside long enough for love to breathe. By evening, Casabella had been transformed. The dining room glowed with candles and white lights. Long tables groaned under the weight of antipasti platters, fresh bread and wine decanters. The staff had volunteered to work the party, and longtime customers had insisted on contributing dishes, turning the celebration into the kind of community feast that Columbus hadn't seen in years. At the center of it all, Thomas and Mary sat at a table decorated with photos from 35 years of marriage and restaurant ownership. Their faces glowed with the particular happiness that comes from being surrounded by people who matter, celebrating something that was built with love and sustained by commitment. Olivia stood at the kitchen pass, watching the party through the service window. She changed into a dress for the occasion, something she rarely did, and her hair was pulled back in a style that made her look younger, more like the daughter who'd learned to cook in this very kitchen. "Second thoughts?" Laura asked, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. "No," Olivia said, accepting the glass. "Just remembering. I forgot how good this feels, being part of something bigger than just me and my restaurant. Your restaurant is pretty amazing too, though. I looked it up online. James Beard nomination, Michelin star, reviews that make it sound like heaven on earth." "It's successful," Olivia agreed. "But it's not this. It's not family." Laura was quiet for a moment, watching their parents laugh at something one of the customers had said. "I have an idea," she said finally, "but you might think it's crazy. Try me. What if we did this more often? Not just crisis management, but actual collaboration. You could come home once a month, maybe twice. We could do special dinners, wine pairings, events that combine your training with Papa's recipes. Make Casabella something unique, traditional Italian with modern techniques." Olivia turned to look at her sister, surprised by both the suggestion and the careful hope in Laura's voice. "You'd want that? Even after everything?" "Especially after everything. I don't want to compete with you anymore, Olivia. I want to learn from you. And maybe you could learn some things from us too. About staying, about being present, about letting people help you instead of always being the one who helps." It was a fair point, and Olivia knew it. Her success in Chicago had come at the cost of connection, achievement built on the foundation of careful isolation. She was respected, admired, successful, and often lonely in ways she trained herself not to acknowledge. I'd have to find a way to manage both restaurants, she said slowly. It wouldn't be easy. The best things never are. Through the service window, Thomas stood up from his chair, raising his wine glass to address the room. The conversations gradually quieted as attention focused on the man who'd spent 35 years creating the space, this community, this family. 35 years ago, he began, his accent still strong despite decades in Ohio, Mary and I opened this restaurant with very little money, no experience, and very big dreams. We wanted to create something that would last, something that would bring people together, something that would be, how do you say, a legacy for our daughters. He paused, looking directly at Olivia and Laura. Tonight, I see that we succeeded, not because of the restaurant, but because of the family we built around it. Both of my daughters are here, both of them strong, both of them carrying forward what we try to teach them about love and food and taking care of people. The room erupted in applause, but Thomas wasn't finished. Olivia, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the dining room. You honored us by making your own way, by becoming something extraordinary. Your success makes us proud every day, even when we are too stubborn to say so. And Laura, he continued, turning to his younger daughter, you honored us by staying, by learning, by keeping the family together when it would have been easier to follow your sister to the big city. Both of you chose love, just in different ways. More applause, and Mary stood to join her husband. What Thomas is trying to say, she added with a smile, is that we are blessed. Blessed to have daughters who care so much about family that they fight about it. Blessed to have a community that becomes family. And blessed to have 35 years of memories that are just the beginning of the story. She raised her glass. To family, to love, to second chances, and to the next 35 years. The toast echoed through the restaurant, glasses clinking, conversations resuming, laughter mixing with the soft music playing in the background. And in the kitchen, two sisters stood side by side, watching their parents celebrate a lifetime of choices that had led to this moment. So, Laura said quietly, partners, partners, Olivia agreed. 6 months later, the sign outside Casabella had been updated. Casabella, EST 1989. Traditional Italian cuisine with contemporary innovation. Sister restaurants, Columbus, Ohio, and Chicago, Illinois. Inside, the restaurant hummed with the energy of a place that had found its rhythm. The dining room maintained its cozy, traditional atmosphere, but the menu now featured dishes that combined Thomas's classical Italian foundations with Olivia's modern techniques and Laura's growing confidence as a chef. Behind you, hot pan, Laura called, carrying a sauté pan of wild mushrooms from the stove to the pass. She moved with increasing confidence in the kitchen, her skills sharpened by monthly training sessions in Chicago and daily practice alongside her father. Plating for table 6, Olivia responded, arranging components for the evening's special, Thomas's osso buco with Laura's saffron risotto and Olivia's deconstructed gremolata. It was a dish that couldn't have existed without all 3 generations of the family, and it had already become one of their most requested items. At the pass, Thomas expedited orders with the authority of someone who'd been running professional kitchens for 4 decades, but his commands now included suggestions from both daughters, his traditional methods enhanced by their innovations. This risotto needs 30 seconds more, he said, tasting Laura's portion. And Olivia, more lemon zest on the gremolata. The richness needs the brightness. Yes, Papa, they said in unison, and the familiar phrase brought smiles to all 3 faces. In the dining room, Mary moved between tables with the grace of someone who genuinely loved taking care of people. But now her conversations with customers included stories about both daughters, Laura's latest creation, Olivia's James Beard nomination, the way they worked together to honor tradition while embracing innovation. How's the collaboration going? Asked Mrs. Patterson, a regular customer who'd been coming to Casabella since it opened. Like watching a miracle, Mary replied. Every month when Olivia comes home, it's like the kitchen comes alive in a new way. And Laura, she's becoming the chef I always knew she could be. They're teaching each other, challenging each other, making each other better. At the kitchen pass, Olivia checked her watch. Last orders in 15 minutes, she announced. Tomorrow she'd drive back to Chicago, but the separation no longer felt like abandonment. It felt like the natural rhythm of a family that had learned to love across distance, to support each other's dreams while maintaining their bonds. "You know what I realized?" Laura said, wiping down her station as the evening wound down. "What's that?" "All those years I resented you for leaving. I thought you were choosing your career over family. But you weren't. You were just choosing a different way to be family." Olivia paused in her own cleaning, considering the observation. "And all those years I stayed away, I thought I was protecting you from my choice to leave. But I was actually protecting myself from having to choose between success and connection. Good thing we're both too stubborn to give up on each other. Good thing." Thomas appeared between them, a dish towel over his shoulder and flour in his hair, the same way he'd looked for 35 years of closing shifts. "Tomorrow, before you leave," he said to Olivia, "I want to show you the new wine cellar plans. Laura thinks we should expand the selection. Maybe do some wine dinners." "I'd love that, Papa. And Laura," he continued, "I've been thinking about your idea for the cooking classes. Maybe we start small, just weekend workshops for now." Laura's face lit up. "Really? You think it could work?" "I think this family can make anything work," Thomas said with the quiet confidence of someone who'd spent 35 years turning dreams into reality through persistence and love. As they finished cleaning the kitchen together, 3 generations working in the comfortable rhythm of people who belonged to each other, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. Not the satisfaction of a successful service or the pride of a perfect dish, but the deeper contentment that comes from being exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly the people who matter most. Outside, Columbus settled into its Saturday night quiet, but inside Casabella, the Castellano family was writing the next chapter of their story. It was a story about the weight of silence, the cost of pride, and the way love persists even when it goes unspoken for too long. But mostly, it was a story about coming home, not to a place, but to each other. "Same time next month?" Laura asked as they turned off the kitchen lights. "Same time next month," Olivia confirmed. And in the darkness of the restaurant that had been their family's heart for 35 years, that promise felt like the beginning of everything they'd been too afraid to hope for. A future where success and connection weren't opposing choices, where tradition and innovation could coexist, where family meant not just the people who stayed, but also the ones who found their way back home. The weight of silence had finally lifted, replaced by something infinitely more precious: the sound of a family that had learned, at last, how to love each other out loud.